It's always a rare pleasure to interact with Mr. Munjal, and just to put the context here, Hero MotoCorp as a stock from its listing has given an appreciation of 500x. It has just been one of the most extraordinary companies, whichever way I look at it, for creating value for shareholders and for creating stock market wealth. So what is the secret sauce? And what is the reason why Hero has become a formidable build-to-last brand? And what is the way forward in today's disruptive world when everybody is talking about how EV is going to change the entire landscape for the auto sector? So to discuss all that and much more, it gives me great pleasure to welcome Mr. Munjal on the show. Mr. Munjal, I want to first start with a number which in a sense could be called as India's pride. Your number of 100 million. When the journey started, did you ever imagine that you would go anywhere close to this number?
Never. Never in my wildest dreams did I imagine that Hero MotoCorp, with its motorcycles and scooters, would get to this kind of a monumental landmark. I'll go back to Hero Cycles, the bicycle days. I started my journey from Majestic Auto Limited, which was a 50cc moped. I would look at the daily production sales of bicycles, which at that time looked to me really huge and humongous, about 10, 12, 15,000. So when we got into motorcycles, Hero Honda, I never thought we were going to cross the bicycle numbers. And lo and behold, it just took us a decade and a half to overtake the bicycles. Now, who would ever imagine in a country like India, where purchasing power is what it is, the motorcycle production sales from one company would overtake those kind of numbers. So I never did imagine. I have to say that it is the trust the customers, 100 million customers around the globe have reposed in the company, in the brand, in our products. It's the performance of the product, it's the technology that has gone into the products, which has really gotten us there. And of course, it is the organization, the teams, all the stakeholders who have worked very, very hard with us to get us here.
Mr. Munjal, the Indian auto industry, especially the two-wheeler industry, brutally competitive, but is extremely efficient. This, in a sense, is again a very proud moment for all of us the minute we talk about the two-wheeler industry.
If you can put it closer, I'm not able to hear well.
Sure. Now, I'm talking about the two-wheeler industry. In a brutally competitive environment, the two-wheeler industry in India is globally competitive. Now, India does not score too much in terms of manufacturing capabilities. China always scores ahead of us. But the two-wheeler industry, the motorcycle industry has demonstrated that. Why is that?
We all know that the Chinese motorcycle industry has gone global. They've gone into every continent, and they've garnered substantial market shares. They have also come into India, but they've never succeeded in India. So clearly, the Indian motorcycle scooter industry has done something which the Chinese industry has not managed to do, which is, number one, the product itself, the product performance, most importantly, the quality of the product, and then the matching price of the product. The customer wants and requires after-sales service. Customer wants to have a bond with the company, which is an everlasting, lifelong bond, which Hero and many other Indian motorcycle companies have given to the customer, the infrastructure, the sales network, the service network. Not just the company manage and run service network, but the service network which is available to you by mechanics, offshoots who have come out of dealerships, set up their own service networks, and readily available everywhere and anywhere. So most importantly, it is the quality which really has kept the Chinese motorcycle scooters out of India. Some of us have actually built that manufacturing capability. And we've done it extremely well. We've married the availability of the manual labor with automation and done it in a manner where we haven't gone and overshot on the investments and costs, yet getting the benefit of the manual labor also.
The most relevant debate right now in the world, at least for an auto company, is what is the future of combustion engine? Is this giving you sleepless night, or you can smell an opportunity?
I'm sorry, you'll have to...
No, I'm saying when it comes to electric vehicles, are you getting sleepless nights thinking that this disruption is round the corner, or you are able to think that the migration towards electric scooters and electric bikes is going to be an opportunity for Hero MotoCorp?
In the year 2012, which was 1 year after Hero became an independent company, standing on its own 2 feet, not a joint venture, which it was until 2011. In 2012, Hero MotoCorp showed a prototype of a hybrid scooter at the Auto Expo. In 2012, nobody was telling us to switch to electric. There was no regulation then. Of course, there was no infrastructure then. There's no infrastructure today. And unfortunately, the company that we were working with went under for some financial reasons, so that project actually got shelved. The point I'm trying to make here is, I'm not getting sleepless nights because I was thinking of electric in 2012. And I continue to think electric because I know for sure that is the only way forward for all of us.
So in this decade, since we are talking about not this quarter, not the next quarter, not this year, not the next year, in this decade, how do you see the entire two-wheeler market changing? Do you think the electric vehicles in the category you represent could be at highest 10 to 15%?
I will not put a number to it. I will only say that directionally, all of us have already started work on electrification. Some companies are already there with the products out there on the roads. We will be out there sooner rather than later. So directionally, we are all moving to electrification. Considering the size of the country, considering the requirement of infrastructure, the ecosystem, the power availability, the subsidies from the government, and very importantly, the disposal of EV waste. So all of that put together, it will be a gradual phenomena. A company like ours, which is today doing very, very large volumes, so switching over to electric will be a gradual phenomena. But as I said, directionally, we are all moving in that direction. It's something which is inevitable, is going to happen.
I'll turn the attention back to the entire pandemic crisis. And one category which made the fastest comeback when the economy started opening up was the two-wheeler sales. The October number, and again, this is in the public domain, were extraordinary. The number was north of about 8 lakh. Did that surprise you? Are you pleasantly surprised and delighted with the kind of recovery we have seen?
I'm not surprised. The the kind of population that we are, the size of population that we are, and the infrastructure we've had in the past in the country, the road network, all the population living in the rural areas, in the villages, where they did not have any means of transportation, it was the motorcycle which came in very, very handy for all of them. It was a means for them to earn their livelihood. And when we came in, companies like ours came in with new technologies, giving you the kind of performance we were. 1985, we came in and we started talking about giving 80 kilometers to a liter of fuel economy, fuel efficiency. Well, people lapped it up, and rightly so. And since then, the technology has only been getting better and better and better. And as you say, competition also is getting stiffer and stiffer. So I'm not surprised with what happened with the two-wheeler industry.
Do you see the two-wheeler industry reaching what could be called as a maturity peak now, given that how the two-wheeler numbers have been, and the fact that in India also there is an upgrade happening from cycle to car, and they may be skipping two-wheelers?
January 21st, when we rolled out the 100 millionth motorcycle from our Haridwar plant, post that I had some interactions with the media. And I said that the first 50 million, we took 29 years to get to the first 50 million. The second 50, we took 7 years. So look at the growth path, the very steep growth path we've had. And I also made an announcement. The next 100 million will come in this very decade. So the point here is that there is that market out there. There is that customer out there. The penetration levels in India are still relatively low. In some countries, you mentioned China, a lot of the population missed out the motorcycle and they straight away went to the four-wheeler, to the cars. That phenomena is not happening here. Over here it is either you first get to the bicycle or you get to the motorcycle, then you get to the car, and then wherever you want to go.
Mr. Munjal, if I look at not the 10-year picture or the 15-year picture where Hero MotoCorp as a stock has created extraordinary shareholder value, last 5 years, more like a myopic example which suits me to frame a question, the leader has been Eicher. And that's because Indians have suddenly upgraded to the premium biking experience. How are you preparing your company to capture and cater that market?
Nikunj, I'm sorry, for some reason the feedback is not coming.
I'm saying, if I look at the last 5 years, Mr. Munjal, again, cut which suits my analysis for me to make a question, which is, the market leader has been Eicher. Indians are migrating towards the premium biking segment. What are your plans? Because you're bullish on the sector, you're bullish on the headline, you're bullish on the penetration level, but how are you planning to bring a strategy to capture the premium biking market?
Friday of the week gone by, I had gone to an award function, Car and Bike Awards, which is their annual awards. I went there, I was getting an award myself, Car and Bike Visionaire Award. The first set of awards that were announced were for Hero motorcycles. The Viewer's Choice Award which was announced was the Extreme 160R. Now this is a new product from us, which is in the premium segment. Then we have the Xpulse 200 family. Then we have a whole host of our engineers in Jaipur and in Germany, our tech center in Germany, working on bigger engines, premium segment bikes. You have recently heard my announcement about a new relationship with Harley-Davidson, which clearly is premiumization of the company. Now, all of this is actually going into capturing the value, which should answer your question really. So we are doing that slowly, gradually, but we are getting there.
When I speak to some of your peers, the comment which I get, or the promise which I get is, we do not want to be the number one two-wheeler player. However, we want to have the highest margins and the most profitable two-wheeler company. Would you like to react to it as your strategy?
My only reaction is that every company, every individual has their own personality, has their own strategies, has their own outlook. You can't have every company have the same outlook and the same ambition and the same strategy.
You have managed to maintain a market share of 50% plus for the longest time anyone can remember. It is absolutely in textbook study. What is the secret sauce here? Is it brand? Is it the way you manage customers? Because retaining a market share in a brutally competitive space where foreign players came in, some of them were forced to get out of the business. Now 3-4 players are left, but 50% market share, sir, is absolutely incredible.
So you're asking me for the secret sauce, is it? You want me to spill the beans? Let me say that at Hero, the customer is at the center of everything that we do, and it is all around the customer. What is it that the customer wants? What kind of product? What features inside the product? What power, what torque, what fuel economy, at what value, what price? So we have single-mindedly followed that one motto, that one direction. Customer is king, and we have been doing everything for and around the customer. And the customer has then rewarded us for that dedication, for that sincerity, for that perseverance, and for the delight that we have been giving to our customers. And I believe we are going to continue to do what we've been doing, albeit in different segments. Also now, we don't have a good enough market share. As I said, we are moving in that direction, and sooner rather than later, we will have our rightful place there.
Mr. Munjal, if I look at the history of corporate India, companies like yours, which have generated a lot of cash, those corporate houses have experimented with different businesses also. IT companies have moved into real estate companies have moved into IT. As a group, you've never experimented, forget about moving out of the auto space. Was this a conscious strategy?
Well, you know that we as a group are in various other industries. There is a big presence in the financial sector, Hero FinCorp, which of course is also doing a lot of related work for Hero MotoCorp. That's where it sprung out from. Originally a subsidiary of Hero Honda, the Hero Honda FinLease, and then later on become an independent company, and now a full-fledged financial services company. Again, Hero Future Energies, which is talking about, well, somebody was just asking me a question a little earlier. While electrification is happening, where is the power and energy coming for charging your electric bikes and cars? Isn't it coming from coal or thermal, etc.? No, the direction that the country has taken, and some of us have taken, us through Hero Future Energies, is renewable energies. So we are supplying power from solar and wind. And then, of course, there is the ancillary industries, Rockman, which is doing components, parts, and Hero Electronics. So in the group, there are various companies in many different fields.
I was referring to substantial non-diversified changes which a lot of corporate groups in last decades have experimented. looking at the cash flow, what you've generated, you've been very conscious about conserving your cash rather than unnecessary diversification. That, I think, it's been a business where you consciously thought through how much you want to diversify and where you want to diversify.
Well, it's a great thing for us that the company does throw up cash on a regular basis. That's because we run the business very efficiently. And as you know, that we are also returning a huge amount of cash back to our shareholders, our investors. Our dividend policy has been consistent now for many, many years. 60% payout is a huge payout by any company. Going forward, yes, the electrification of the industry for us is going to require a huge amount of investment. Having said that, I personally would want to continue with our dividend policy and yet be able to manage the investment required for electrification.
So I don't want to get this one wrong. This is a very sensitive question every time a company speaks about dividend policy. What you're sharing with us and the audience here and with your shareholders is, even though you will have to invest in electric vehicles in terms of building a platform, your dividend policy is unlikely to change.
You want me to make a commitment here?
I'm asking you a follow-up question.
As I said, that's a policy we made some years back, and we've been following that policy very consistently. And going forward, I would like to continue with the same policy and not change the policy. There is enough investment available if we require. We have cash. If we require more cash, there would be enough investments available to us.
Does it bother you that you don't have a very large, formidable market share in the export market?
Say that again.
You don't have you're not the number one, you don't have the number one market share in the export market, the two-wheeler export market. Does that bother you?
Yes, it does bother me. But then, I don't expect to become number one in the global business where we as a company have very recently started doing business. We have been a domestic company for all these years and selling only to the neighboring countries, while some of the other players, our competitors, have been in the global markets for decades now. But we have a huge focus right now on global business, disproportionate in the company. The time, effort, investment, R&D behind global business, and we have given ourselves very stiff targets, and we will again find our rightful place in the global business as well.
A question which, again, the markets and analyst fraternity talk about is that Hero MotoCorp is a great company, but ultimately it is dependent on the demand-supply equation in India, which tends to be cyclical. There are some other companies which are hedging themselves. Are you thinking on those lines where you want to hedge yourself with other markets?
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, the focus on global business is now very, very concentrated and huge. And we have picked ourselves in our global business. We are currently in 40 plus markets. And within those, we have picked markets where we believe we can very quickly get big market shares and we can get big dividends. We are hedging our bets.
I'll go back to the theme of the conference, which is reform, perform, and transform. Let's start first with reform. Given that we've seen a series of actions from the government on commitment towards privatization, spending without really getting bothered about fiscal deficit, which is one reform which you are excited about and could be the game-changing reform of this decade by the administration?
I believe that this government has a long-term vision. Even even when the government came in for the first term in 2014 with such a huge majority, many of us expected the government to do a lot of here and now stuff. Of course, have a long-term vision too. That here and now stuff has not happened. But even now, the recent budget, I find there's a lot of stuff going on for the long term, which from my point of view is a great thing for the nation. Of course, I still want here and now stuff, especially in the current situation where we want the consumers to come back into our showrooms, start buying the products. The third quarter, as you know, for all of us, for Hero, was a great quarter. October 2020 for Hero has been the best ever quarter since we started operations in 85. Whoever could have imagined that during the time of a pandemic, we have the highest production, the highest sales, the highest dispatches, which is unfortunately not carried forward into the fourth quarter. So that's what we are looking for, support from the government to bring the demand back.
Despite the promise of India, Dr. Munjal, India's per capita income is still stuck. Our per capita income is nowhere close to what the aspirational number of China is. What can be done to take it higher? Because ultimately that is the number which will change the dynamics of India and for consumer.
Of course, the biggest one is creating jobs. That's the first and foremost. We have to create the infrastructure around the nation. We are still far behind in terms of infrastructure, which is surely going to create jobs. The biggest, and to my mind, the first and foremost is create jobs, give people employment, which is definitely going to take your per capita income up.
Now the second part, which is perform. And last 2 quarters, we have seen a remarkable comeback in earnings, and that's across the board. Corporate boardrooms are using the word highest ever to define demand, to define margins, and also to define the visibility. Do you think India Inc. is back on track and are we on a cusp of a new earnings cycle?
Yeah, I believe majority of India Inc. is back on track. And some of us really bounced back very fast, which is remarkable. I mean, we've seen most nations around the globe are still struggling. In spite of the situation here, in spite of the lockdowns, the markets closing and opening, then again closing, opening, some of us did really, really well. So I do believe that we are back on track. It's just the current situation in the market, which is a little slow for some, which is very good for some of the others, in the other segments. So come April, I personally think things should start looking up really well.
India Inc., Dr. Munjal, for the longest time has argued about 3 factors. That in India, there are 3 challenges: cost of capital, labor, and land. Are those 3 factors now finally getting addressed?
Partially, yes. Not completely, but partially, yes. I do believe the government, as I said, is doing a lot of long-term stuff. Some of these things have to be preponed and done here and now.
Transform, the third part of today's conference. In next 4 to 5 years, where do you see transformational changes will happen? Because one thing is for sure, the ability of Indians to come back, both in terms of scale, skill, size, ability, and agility, is extraordinary.
For me, personally, if I look forward into the next decade, the kind of digitalization that is happening, which is a huge transformation, the kind of connectivity that's happening for everything and anything. The customer today wants a connected vehicle. Everything is now going into the cloud. is being done through the cloud. So it's really, the big disruptor is going to be technology.
How
And more and more, all of us have to move into that direction.
How do you see your business changing because of technology? Because one of your main USPs, if I say, is the distribution network, the whole experience of a customer walking into a showroom and doing a test ride. In today's digital world, how do you see that changing?
Well, before the pandemic, we already were working on digitization, on selling to customers digitally. The pandemic pushed us really hard into that. And during the pandemic, we have seen that already change. People are also now buying digitally. Going forward, this will even become bigger. So the showroom, the dealerships of the past will not be the same going forward.
Do you see this changing the way you have operated your business and cost structures as well? Because if everything is going to move or gradually moves towards digital, the whole idea of distributors, rental, showroom, dealers, could that change the dynamics of the way you do business? And the change could be very rapid.
My personal take, yes, it will change. We are currently designing new visual identities for our dealerships. The complete thought process is different from how we did it 35 years ago. It's absolutely different. It's about tech, about digitization, about connecting, about showing the product to the customer digitally. Yes, there will be possibility for those who still want to touch and feel, to sit on a bike. Of course, we'll give them test rides wherever they want. But there will be a big transformation here.
I'm going to throw a question which I never had a chance of asking you, even a couple of years ago, when you decided to split with your joint venture partner. In 2012, what gave you the courage to go solo? Was it a calculated decision or was it a risk you took?
There's a history to this. We started in 1985, so we obviously wrote an agreement amongst ourselves that this is how we will operate the organization. And the company did really, really very well, much better than the business plans those were written down amongst us. The environment also changed. Hero Honda became the world's #1 player. Hero Honda was only a domestic player. Of course, as per the agreement, Hero Honda depended upon the technology coming from the technology partner. But over time, things changed. So we said, okay, let's now sit together and rewrite our agreements, which could not happen. And then me and my entire leadership team, we started preparing ourselves. Because the technology was coming from elsewhere, we did not have the wherewithal. We had to create that wherewithal. Because we were dependent for a lot of things on the partner, we had to prepare ourselves. So we took a couple of years. It wasn't a decision taken overnight. So there was a bit of gut, and there was a lot of preparation, lot of strategizing. And then it was the risk-taking ability. More importantly, and most importantly, it was about creating an Indian multinational.
Two more follow-up questions, and really on the personal side. My first question is, if Dr. Pawan Munjal of 2021 has to write a letter to Pawan Munjal of 1985, how will that letter start? And how will that letter end? And what would be the learnings you would like to share?
I don't think it will be a letter. Again, the way tech is moving, I don't know what it will be in that year. It won't be a letter, but it will be something telling Pawan Munjal of 1985, you come from a certain background, from a certain industry, and you reached where you have. Just one line, what brought you here will not get you there.
What a great line, what a great line. My last question is, the pandemic crisis. All of us have had experiences. Some of us in the pandemic crisis have learned. Few things have inspired us. For you personally, Dr. Munjal, in this pandemic, what has been your biggest learning and what, in a sense, has been your biggest fearful moment?
So my biggest learning has been communicate, spread positivity, spread optimism, communicate, communicate, and communicate. In the first 3 months of the lockdown, I did close to 50 town halls with all stakeholders, company employees on a very regular basis, and town halls, which is interactive. The supplier partners, the dealer partners, global distributors, our investors, and the group companies. So I was talking to people all the time on a regular basis, assuring them, because we were, of course, taking care of everyone. We did not let go of a single employee. There were no salary cuts, which kept everyone's faith intact. And of course, we prepared ourselves so well. We shut down before the lockdown was announced in India. We shut down globally. And me and my team, we set up a task force. We started meeting every morning at 9, every day. We strategized, we prepared ourselves, and as soon as the opening was announced, we were ready to sprint. And that's what we did. We started sprinting. And we've been sprinting since then.
And I really hope the sprint continues. Just when I thought that I'll ask you a last question, the sheet comes with a lot of questions from the audience. So I'll take the liberty of extending my appointment with you. And it's a very pertinent question, Dr. Munjal, which is that the rules of success or creating a great company, have they changed? And will they change in today's tech and digital world?
I'm going to ask you to repeat this one again.
No, the question is, the rules of creating a successful company, have they changed and will they change in today's so-called VUCA world?
The rules will not change. The rules will remain same. How you go about doing it might change because the environment has changed, because the way you do things has changed and continues to change in this current world, the current digitized tech world. So that's the only thing which is going to change.
A question which is very close to your heart, and it's a question which has come on my cheat sheet also, which is, what will be the importance of ESG in this decade for companies like Hero MotoCorp?
Hugely important. Sustainability is personally very close to my heart. I personally have been driving sustainability in the organization, again, even before people started talking about ESG. If you were to visit our factories now, I like to call them garden factories, because they are garden factories, they are green. Something called cradle to cradle. We use materials which come from the earth and they go back into the earth. We give back water to the soil. We have green walls which give oxygen much more than they earlier used to. We have created the architecture inside the factories is such that it's a pleasure to be inside the factory, unlike in the old factories. So all of that stuff, we've been doing so much on sustainability already. To my mind, ESG is very important. I would encourage every other company, every other corporate to do much, much more on the ESG front.
There's one more question which has just come on my Twitter feed, and I can see that it's a stock market dominated question, which is that what is the right way of looking at auto companies? They are considered to be cyclical, yet the auto companies in India, the ones we have, they have phenomenal return ratios and they're phenomenal advantage. Do you think the way markets are valuing auto stocks, that's like giving a stepmotherly treatment?
Let me give a different spin to this. There are some startups, new companies, who are producing cars and some producing scooters or motorcycles, who like to call themselves tech companies, not auto companies. The traditional auto companies, like mine, are becoming tech companies. If they are not becoming tech companies, they will have to become tech companies, because that's the only survival. So that will, for you, change everything.
My last question, and
how many last questions do you have, Nikunj, for me?
No, I have been asked on the chit sheet to ask you one more last question. So I'm just,
okay.
It's just the attention we are getting on the social media. Okay, I promise this will be the last one. What is your view on Elon Musk? How will history remember him?
Elon Musk?
Elon Musk.
Well, he's my personal favorite. He's a real disruptor. Every few months, you will hear some new disruption coming from him. A lot of us dream. Many of us dream. We want to do stuff. But he's somebody who dreams and actually does it. So he is my personal favorite.
You know, the timer also says time's up. So I promise that was my last question. But ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together for Dr. Pawan Munjal for just creating what could be called as an extraordinary company, from an unforgettable brand to from a small brand to an unforgettable company. It's quite a story. Thank you very much, sir, and thank you for gracing this entire IC.